The king has returned for this win.
So now I'm framing up the rest of the walls I need in the exact same way.
My goal is to hit around 20 crown wins today. I'm planning to go start my own stream. Behave yourself, Nova.
So a portion of these walls are a little bit shorter so that I could make up this floor frame, and then this is going to be a walkable level that goes beside the bed. That way I don't have to completely just crawl up the loft into bed. I can stand up in this hallway just a little bit bent over. And after an afternoon of work, I have my bathroom and shower and a couple closets framed in. Now I'm going to be making up the floor framing for the loft. And I have some cedar 4x4s I'm doing that with. But first of all, I just have my planer, and I'm just doing one quick pass on each of the four sides of the 4x4 just to give it a fresh face and kind of square up the edges a little bit. And I like the look of the plain 4x4 a lot better than the factory finish, so I went ahead and planed down all 10 of my 4x4s quickly.
Another one bites the dust, I guess.
I'd just make a fresh end at the start of the 4x4 and then measure out the length I needed. And then just completed the cuts with my miter saw.
I should have went on the other side, but whatever.
So with all my pieces cut, I can just start assembling my loft floor framing. I decided to use some nice cedar 4x4s for this framing, and I took the extra time to frame them because this is going to be an exposed ceiling in the bathroom. I was considering just framing this floor out of 2x4s and then closing it in with a ceiling in the bathroom, but I really like the look of the exposed.
Man, give me another earthbending school? I don't need that. It's boring.
Little things like this don't seem like huge decisions, but when you're dealing with such a small space, any little added attention to detail you can put in makes the final product feel a lot less claustrophobic, at least hopefully. So to fasten these timbers together, I'm using these 6-inch lag screws. And basically I just mark the center point of a beam, and then just quickly pre-drill the hole with a small drill bit. And then use my impact to drive these screws, sinking them flush into the face of that 4x4. Some of these screw heads will be exposed, so I took the time to measure out my screw placement so everything's nice and uniform. Now this frame's complete, so I had my brother run over quick to help me lift this up into place. And once I have that sitting level, I use those same lag screws just to screw this into the framing of the walls, wherever it wasn't supported by a load-bearing wall beneath it. Where it was supported by a wall, I just used some 3-inch deck screws to secure it together. So open this little loft hallway thing, I just used a scrap piece of OSB I had lying around and cut it to size for a subfloor. And then I'm doing this last bit of framing to close in these walls. So these walls close in the loft, and then they also give me a full height shower with the window. Again, with the space this small, you want to really pick and choose some things to go over the top with to make it feel more grand. And having this 10-foot tall shower with a window in it is a nicer shower than most houses, and it's going to be a big thing that I do every day that doesn't feel like I'm cramped into this tiny little space. So now I'm going to do the floor for the rest of the loft, so I'm just measuring out the pieces. And then I have this 1/2-inch maple cabinet grade plywood, and I'm just ripping these pieces aside with my circular saw. And before I install that, there's a couple spots on these walls where when the paneling comes up, they don't have a hard edge to stop them.
My shoulders, you
So
know I don't.
4x4
They're not
blocking
closed.
just to
The nails hurt when
paneling
they get
edge
into
to
my
stop.
shoulders. Sweet.
And there's a few of these places, so I just went around and installed all those blocks. And then I sanded up this entire frame with some 120 grit, and this would have been a lot easier if I just did this in individual pieces before I sanded it. Or even if I sanded it before it was 7 feet up in the air. But hey, it wouldn't matter. So I picked this maple cabinet pipe for a couple reasons. One, it's really strong, so I could probably get away with ½ inch. And two, it has 2 finished faces, so potentially this could just be the finished face of the ceiling of the bathroom, as well as the finished face of the floor of the loft. And that would have been great in theory, but I didn't quite plan far enough ahead. So since this lock face is potentially going to be used, I decided to use some construction adhesive and 15-gauge nails to nail this down. That way I have this little cleanup.
Stupid! I hate that shotgun.
If you're going to floor over top of this, you could easily just screw this down and skip the construction adhesive, which I should have did, because, spoiler alert, that construction adhesive is really tough to get off. But anyway, for now, I have a finished loft floor. So next on the agenda, I'm going to be installing a gas line to feed propane to my stove, incinerating toilet, and tankless water heater. So after I pretty precisely measured the route the pipe is going to take, I went out to the hardware store and just got a bunch of this black iron pipe and these ½ inch fittings. And to connect these pipes together, I'll be using a combination of this pipe dope and some yellow gas tape. By the way, this is the first time I've ever done this, and I'm in no way qualified to tell you how to do this, so take this with a grain of salt. But first I took some of the yellow thread tape, and I just made 2 clockwise laps around the threads. Then I just took a little bit of pipe dope and just went around the threads as well. Theoretically, you should only need 1 of these, but I'm a beginner, so I'm going to kind of double cover my axe here, and hope that there's no leaks.
Finish.
Putting on the fitting hand tight, I just took 2 pipe wrenches.
Only king here is me, not you.
Complete fitting. So I basically just had to measure out all the different lengths of pipe I needed and what fittings, and then just I assembled as much as I possibly could on the bench and then brought the section in place to connect them together. So I kind of had to get creative with my route here just because I didn't want to drill through the 2x4 framing too much and take away a lot of the structure. So I just kind of zigzagged it along underneath where the cabinets are going to be, and then up along the wall and across the beams into this closet. Really the goal is just to get one of these ½ inch capped ends everywhere I'm going to need to hook it up to an appliance. And then to bring this gas line outside of the house, I built up this little section of pipe. It will basically go out from the main gas line along the floor, and then just elbow out towards the edge of the trailer with this shutoff valve and the 3/8 fitting that'll fit onto the propane tank and regulator. So I just drove this out through the floor with a forceps bit, and then used a spade bit just to pierce that insulation. Then I can poke that pipe up through the floor, and after I prep the threads, I can start threading that on to the rest of the gas line.
Stupid.
So really quick how I routed this, I came up through the floor and ran this over to a T to feed the stove, and this pipe just runs along the floor underneath where the cabinets are going to be, over to the incinerating toilet,